Hello and welcome to a new video. This is another one in the occasional Austin of England series. This is a Dinky Austin Atlantic, model number 106. They were produced apparently for about 4 years in the 1950s, from 1954 to 58, and were then deleted. This is a particularly play-worn one. It's obviously been overpainted at some point in its life. I don't know what the original colour of it was, but I'd suggest it was probably a blue and it's been redone. Looks as though it was done with kind of traditional enamel paints, Humbrol or some such. Not that it'll matter, they'll be lying in the bottom of a vat of caustic soda in a short while. So I've already drilled the case as usual. I'm going to pop it open. I expect I've done the usual bad job of drilling it and ended up having to nibble a bit out with the pliers. A little bit of leverage going on here. So while I'm pulling this relatively simple car to pieces, I'd just like to say thanks to any returning viewers and any new viewers. Thanks to the subscribers, and if you like what we're doing here, obviously please consider subscribing. We'll get on with it. As you can see, I've screwed the pooch with drilling the base, and I'll end up having to straighten that one out later. Straightforward enough, lifting the wheels out. These aren't actually connected to the axles, they're loose. No, not pinned over. I've come across one or two models where they do that with it. The steering wheel is on a pin that's bent over. I'm just going to straighten that out and get it out at some point. At this point I figure out that the entire dash comes out. But not until the steering wheel's off. It's just literally bent over like a cotter pin. But it does take a bit of fiddling to get it out. Thankfully it's all metal. It's not a plastic wheel, because it wouldn't have stood up to much. It'd probably been missing by now if it was. So I'm fighting a combination of things here. Bent pin, stuck together with Humbrol paint, and then out she comes. We'll get that all in the caustic soda, get a coat of primer on it, and crack on with the painting. I've mixed this rather nice shade of what I'm calling Atlantic Bloom with Vanguard's white and a liberal dose of Canary Yellow. I've kind of tinted it to taste. I'd seen one in a magazine some time ago, classic car magazine, that was this shade, and I thought it really suited it well. It was for export, I think maybe to Holland, but I'm not entirely sure about that. It's certainly a European export colour from what I understand. So it's the usual story of a few light coats. Fairly easy to achieve coverage on this one. The Jacquard opaque white does give pretty good colour. Just get some plenty on the inside. At this point I'm not quite sure what I'm going to paint the interior colour, so I've given it a dose of yellow because it'll be fairly easy to cover over whichever way I go, whether it's black seats or red. Ultimately I decide on red to match the catalogue photograph that I managed to find on Google. So here we go. So in with JVR carmine red, which does a pretty good job of mimicking the pictures that I've seen. Goes on, covers the yellow quite easily. Masked off the usual style. I've done the crisp edges with plastic or PVC tape. There we go. If you look on the back there, I experimented briefly with a couple of stick-on jewels for tail lights, but I really didn't like them, so they didn't survive past this stage. I'm doing the folded down rag top here with auto wear base coat sealer dark, which dries to a nice matte finish. No masking here, it's just a case of being as steady with the hand as you can. It'll take a couple of coats to give it a full coverage, but I think it looks pretty good when it's all done. A lot of people like to go for the smallest brush they can get their hands on when doing this kind of thing, but I find a broad flat brush serves me quite well. You get less brush marks and a nice even consistent stroke. I do use a finer one around the edges where the canopy joins the bodywork, but for the bulk of the work, broad flat brush works fine. Nothing too elaborate or expensive. I think I picked these up from the works. About £2 for a packet of 4 or 5, I think. I don't tend to pay too much for brushes. I'll rather just use them until they're past their best and bin them off and get some new ones. As you can see, the second coat's covered quite well, but I've got to do the fine detail around the bodywork shortly. There's quite a lot of brush painting involved in this one and not so much airbrushing. Apologise for the autofocus on here. Unfortunately, you've got a really nice shot of my finger and the brush, and not so much of the action going on at the other end of it. As you can see, just gentle strokes. All you can do is be patient with these things. There's no good dashing at it. Here's the dashboard, and I'm going in with the carmine red again to match it up to what will be the colour for the bench seat and the front and the back. Takes 2 or 3 coats to cover evenly. Starts off looking a little bit patchy, but if you persevere, you'll end up with a nice even coat. The underside of the dash there. I did do the steering wheel with a kind of a wood grain effect, but it's very small and difficult to see, so I didn't bother filming it. So, progressing the dashboard here. Unfortunately, I'm getting used to using the camera right in front of me, and I'd got it out of shot here. But that's the dashboard largely finished. Just the bezels and what have you left to detail. So I'm moving on here to working on the chrome. Quite a bit of chrome on this car. All brushwork, unfortunately, no shortcuts. As usual, using Stuart Semple's mirror brush paint. It's quite expensive at £30 a bottle, but it lasts for absolutely ages. bit slower drying because it seems more of an oil-based paint than an acrylic, but it does have a very nice finish. Very easy to use. Yeah, extensive detailing on this one. Chrome for the headlights. Great long flash the full length of the body. Heavy chrome badging on the bonnet and the bumper. You can see that this was built by Austin with the American market in mind. Very much following the kind of heavy chrome craze of that era. I shouldn't have minded owning one, although they finished making them before I was born. Nice profile shot. Just finishing off rounding around the bumper there. I think size for size, the most chrome on this one of any of the models I've done up to this point. But a lovely body shape, obviously, based on the Somerset of the same sort of era. Very nice car. Packed quite a lot of detail into the casting and gone to quite a lot of trouble to mimic the badges, but curiously enough didn't put any tail lights into the casting, which I thought was a bit of a shame because I've not thought it would have taken a great deal more in the process. So just included a couple of little blisters to represent the tail lights. They weren't all that elaborate on the actual car. I'll mimic them with a couple of dots towards the end. And here we are, it's assembly time. I had a bit of a struggle getting the dash in, I think mainly because I'd got so many coats of paint on that it was a little bit difficult to slot in, but we got it there in the finish. Dropping the wheels back on. These are riveted back on the axle rod, these ones, but the rear ones are loose and they're kept in place by the shape of the body. Just popping the new tyres on slightly out of shot there. I promise I will eventually capture the images right in the middle of the frame. You'll have to bear with me, I'm trying a new tripod out. Trying to get better close-up pictures for you. Unfortunately, the close-ups are mainly of my arms and fingers at the moment, but I swear it will improve. There we go, just push the rod through and it's dropped into place there. And they're rolling, which is always a bonus. Just going to pop the steering wheel back in place now. A little bit tight skis. I thought I was going to chip some paint off the seat, but I got away with it. Push it through. Just bend the nib up with the pliers to hold it in place. Just kind of bends around like a cotter pin. I've straightened the base plate out from the mauling that I gave it earlier. And a nice refresh with some base coat Sealer Dark. And it's time for the super glue and some rivets. Quite deep rivets on this one, so generous blast of super glue. First one in. Try not to get it on your fingers. Yeah, off, in doubt, wipe it all over the base plate. And another good dose for the back. In she goes, and we all know what's coming next. Hit it with the zip kicker, and here she is on the turntable. While you're watching that go around, once again I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please give it some thought. I'd be very grateful.